Every year, the gambling industry collects hundreds of billions of dollars, and about 60 cents of every dollar comes from people who are trying to stop. Not people who enjoy it, not casual fans placing a weekend bet. People who have lost control, or are on the edge of it. That is not a side effect of the gambling business. According to the World Health Organization, citing the Lancet Public Health Commission, it is the business. This industry is legal. It is regulated. It is taxed by governments that depend on the money. It is run by publicly traded companies with fiduciary duties to shareholders. It markets itself as entertainment, and it quietly survives on the losses of the people it says it is protecting. To understand how we got here, go back to May 2018. The United States Supreme Court strikes down PASPA, the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, a 1992 federal law that had effectively banned sports betting in most of the country. The ruling is unanimous in its conclusion, if not its reasoning. States have the right to decide for themselves. The reaction is immediate. Every major sports league issues a cautious statement. Las Vegas, which had held a monopoly on legal sports gambling for decades, watches quietly. And the technology companies, DraftKings, FanDuel, and a dozen others, begin drafting their expansion plans. The pitch to state governments is straightforward. Legalization will move billions of dollars out of illegal bookmakers and into a transparent, regulated market. It will generate tax revenue. It will protect consumers because legal operators have rules, age checks, and responsible gaming tools that illegal bookies do not. The argument sounds reasonable. Most arguments for deregulation do. Within 5 years, nearly 40 states and Washington, D.C. will have legal sports betting. The money will move almost entirely to mobile apps. Sportsbook commercials will run during every major game. Celebrity endorsements, bonus offers. The language of sports fandom wrapped around the mechanics of gambling. In 2017, before the ruling, the entire legal U.S. sports betting market, confined mostly to Nevada, handled about $4.9 billion in wagers. That number grew by an order of magnitude in just a few years. The expansion was one of the fastest in the history of legal commercial entertainment. But there is a math problem hiding underneath the growth story, and it is hiding in plain sight. To build a profitable gambling business, you do not need millions of casual customers. You need a small number of very heavy ones. The World Health Organization, drawing on the leading research, states that people gambling at harmful levels generate around 60% of all gambling losses. That means the industry's revenue, the money it collects, the taxes governments depend on, flows primarily from the people it claims to be protecting. Think about what that means for the product. If 60 cents of every dollar comes from users who are gambling at harmful levels, then protecting those users, really protecting them, would cost the industry most of what it earns. The data confirms the pattern after legalization. Research published in JAMA Internal Medicine found a significant surge in problem gambling help-seeking following the launch of legal online sportsbooks in state after state. The National Council on Problem Gambling reviewed the literature and found that online sports bettors have problem gambling rates at least twice as high as gamblers in general. The Lancet Public Health Commission, reviewing decades of research, found that among people who gamble online, rates of problematic gambling are substantially higher than in the general population, and climbing as mobile betting expands. Most people who download a betting app will place a few small wagers and drift away. That is not who keeps the business running. The business runs on the ones who cannot drift away. This is where the story gets uncomfortable, because what happens next is not a failure of the system. It is the system working exactly as designed. As the major operators grow, they build what they call VIP programs. Every major platform has one. DraftKings, FanDuel. They all assign dedicated hosts to their highest spending users. Personalized account managers, loyalty bonuses, event invitations, luxury gifts. Now, read that description again and ask yourself, who qualifies as a high-spending user in a business where the top 1% of customers generate 37% of revenue? The algorithms running underneath these apps are sophisticated. They track bet frequency, session timing, loss velocity, and behavioral patterns in real time. They can identify, with a high degree of accuracy, which users are in distress, who is chasing losses at 2 in the morning, Who placed 50 bets yesterday after telling themselves they would stop? And when those patterns appear, the VIP team does not send a cooling off notice. It sends a bonus offer, a free bet, a same-game parlay suggestion, a personalized nudge to stay in the game. This is not speculation from critics. It is the basis of lawsuit after lawsuit filed against these companies. In Baltimore's April 2025 lawsuit against DraftKings and FanDuel, the city specifically alleges that the platforms send tailored notifications and bonuses to losing bettors and people showing signs of addiction. It also accuses them of applying stronger problem gambling protections in the United Kingdom, where regulators have real teeth, but choosing not to apply those same safeguards in the United States. The same platform, two different standards. One country where the regulator is a partner in tax revenue, one country where it is not. And the business works. That is what makes this story so hard to look away from. In 2024, the legal U.S. sportsbook industry generated about $13 billion in gross revenue. State and local governments collected about $3 billion in sports betting tax in 2024 alone. In New York, the state collected over $1 billion in a single year from sports betting taxes. The industry had delivered on its promise, just not the one about consumer protection. DraftKings went public on the NASDAQ. FanDuel became the top-grossing sports app in the United States. The commercial breaks during NFL games filled with odds overlays and celebrity spokespeople. The apps ran promotions called No Sweat Bets, and risk-free wagers, and first bet insurance. Names engineered to make something sound safe that is, by design, not. The addiction numbers were climbing at the same pace as the revenue numbers. You just had to know where to look. The Lancet Commission reviewed the research and found that at least 80 million adults worldwide live with gambling disorder or problematic gambling. Among people who gamble online, research finds rates of problematic gambling are substantially higher than in the general population. And among adolescents who use online casino products, those rates are especially alarming. The entertainment industry had built something that worked exactly like it was designed to work, and the design had consequences no one in government had fully accounted for. On March 15, 2025, a man in Pennsylvania submitted a self-exclusion request through DraftKings. Self-exclusion is a formal mechanism, a documented legal declaration that you cannot control your gambling. It is the industry's own safety valve, the last line of defense. After he submitted it, his VIP host contacted him anyway. That detail, small, precise, documented, is now at the center of a lawsuit that names DraftKings, FanDuel, the NFL, and others as defendants. The complaint does not accuse anyone of carelessness. It accuses them of knowledge. The legal theory emerging across dozens of these cases is not that the apps failed to detect the problem gambling. It is that the apps detected it and responded with more offers. This is why the lawsuits are being compared to the opioid litigation and to big tobacco. Not because the products are the same, but because the legal structure is the same. A company that, through its own data and its own internal research, had clear visibility into which users were being harmed, and chose to continue. The cases describe VIP programs where dedicated hosts encouraged continued betting despite evident problematic behavior. In one case, a VIP host suggested a plaintiff take breaks after losing streaks, showing the host understood the situation, and then continued promoting the app. A Pennsylvania woman lost $153,000 in 4 months. Over the full year of 2023, she lost more than $400,000, all while receiving intensive VIP host outreach from DraftKings. A New Jersey man earned approximately $175,000 a year. DraftKings allowed him to wager 300% of his annual salary in 2022, then 440% in 2023. A man in another case requested that DraftKings close his account in 2020. It stayed open until 2024. In those 4 years, he spent $350,000. The company had the data. It had the algorithmic capability to flag these accounts. It had the legal mechanism, self-exclusion, to stop them. In some cases, it had explicit requests from the users themselves, and it kept the accounts running. As of 2026, dozens of lawsuits have been filed against major gambling operators across multiple states. The legal theory is simple. They knew who was in trouble. They knew because they built the system that told them. And they used that information to keep the revenue flowing. The legal system is slow, the business model is fast, but in 2025, the reckoning starts to catch up. In April of that year, the city of Baltimore sues DraftKings and FanDuel under its Consumer Protection Ordinance. Not a private plaintiff seeking damages, a city government calling these platforms a public health nuisance. Baltimore asks for injunctive relief, stop the practices, not pay for them. In July 2025, the Massachusetts Gaming Commission fines DraftKings for accepting illegal credit card-funded wagers, a violation that, in isolation, sounds administrative. But it points to a pattern. The mechanisms that enable problem gambling, fast deposits, frictionless credit, exist because removing them would cost the platform money. In March 2025, U.S. representatives and senators reintroduced the Safe Bet Act. It would ban AI-driven micro-bets. It would ban gambling ads between 8 in the morning and 10 at night. It would cap deposits. It would require affordability checks for anyone wagering more than $1,000 in a day. It would, for the first time, create a national self-exclusion clearinghouse so that someone who self-excludes cannot simply open a new account at a different app. As of late 2025, the Safe Bet Act remains in committee. It has not passed. Here is the detail that stays with you. The Baltimore lawsuit does not just accuse DraftKings and FanDuel of running a harmful product. It accuses them of running two different products. One for the United Kingdom, where gambling regulation has teeth, and one for the United States, where it mostly has revenue targets. The same platform, the same algorithms, stricter safeguards in one jurisdiction, a different standard in another. Not because the technology is different, because the consequences of applying them here would be financial. That is not a bug in the system. That is a cost-benefit calculation. On October 24, 2024, the Lancet Public Health Commission releases its report on gambling. It is a peer-reviewed, multi-year, international study. Its conclusion is precise. Gambling should be treated as a global public health crisis. The World Health Organization, drawing on that body of evidence, states that people gambling at harmful levels generate around 60% of all gambling losses, which are the industry's revenues, which are the taxes that nearly 40 states depend on. Global gambling revenue stood at more than $500 billion in 2023. The WHO and Lancet projected approaching $700 billion by 2028. Nobody knows exactly what you do with a number like that. It is too large to feel personal, and gambling harm is a very personal thing. A man who spent $350,000 after asking a platform to close his account. A woman who lost $400,000 in a year while a VIP host kept calling. A young man who self-excluded on a Tuesday and got a text from his account manager on Thursday. So here is the uncomfortable pattern. We built a system to move gambling out of the shadows and into the light. We gave it rules and taxes and responsible gaming hotlines. We made it legal and called it safe. And the system worked. It generated billions in revenue and billions in taxes because the people most harmed by it could not stop. It is tempting to call this a failure of regulation. But regulation was always downstream of the business model. The question the Lancet Commission leaves open, the one this industry does not have an answer for, is this. What does it mean to build a legal product whose financial survival depends on the people it is supposed to protect?